Water is such a part of our everyday lives that we take it for granted. We use water for drinking, brushing our teeth, and washing clothes, dishes, and ourselves. But do you know where your water comes from or where it goes? Water infrastructure has three general systems. Clean drinking water comes from a river or lake, is
Oh
cleaned at a
my.
treatment plant, and moved to homes, schools, and businesses. Wastewater, used and often dirty water, is flushed or drained, treated, and then moved to our rivers and lakes. Finally, stormwater. When it rains or you wash your car, water runs off hard surfaces like parking lots and roofs to the stormwater system. Sadly, water infrastructure in the US is in trouble.
This is the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesday webcast for April 13th, 2022.
Welcome, 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 beloved community. We are back again with yet another installment of the People's Water Board Coalition's Water Wednesdays webcast. And today we have the unique pleasure of having Mr. Gary Gray, who is Chief of Staff for Councilwoman Latisha Johnson, who I believe is in District 3. And today we're going to be here along with my co-host Valerie Jean Blakely and our behind the scenes tech guy, Lou Novak, and commenter Rosalind Walker to speak about water affordability and where it's at with the city council and how Ms. Johnson is very concerned about our water infrastructure system here in the city. Thank you so much, Mr. Gray, for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your super busy schedule to meet with us.
Thank you, Nicole, and I appreciate the opportunity. I said I bring greetings from Council Member Johnson, who couldn't be here, so you got to settle for me. And now,
okay.
one thing I will say, there's no space between her and me on this topic. So what you hear from me is pretty much what she would say if she was here before you. And we're in District 4.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was District 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with us, because we really want all of City Council to be thinking about these things: water infrastructure, and what the plan is to fix the water infrastructure here in Detroit, because we know that it's tanked and it needs to be done. And then, of course, water affordability. So thank you so much. And it's a short show, so we're going to jump right into it. I noticed when Councilwoman Johnson was running for her seat, that she was really concerned about water infrastructure and talking about it a lot. Do you want to know, or do you want to tell us a little bit of why she became so concerned with it?
Absolutely. As you know, and I could tell by your video clip, I couldn't hear it that well, but Detroit has the combined sewer system. The stormwater and wastewater ends up going through one pipe. That system is aged, to say the least, and is in dire need of repair. Last year and years before, whenever we had major rain events, various neighborhoods throughout the city were flooded, basements ruined, furniture ruined, people filing claims, FEMA in town. No district was hit as hard as District 4. We're in the southernmost part of the southeastern part of the community, and the water flows. We're not far from the river, the lake, so the water treatment plants flow right through our community. So we've had several communities within District 4 that were really devastated, and we have a history of that. So the council member in June 16th, whatever the day, I forget the date, we were in the midst of a campaign. And that became issue number one, particularly for District 4. So
people's homes were devastated. They were put out. Some people lost their homes completely because they weren't able to fix it. It's a mess.
I'm not sure of that, but I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that there's some folks who still haven't really been able to get their basements fully dried out, and certainly not replaced. FEMA is not stepping up to the plate for some people. Their claims were denied, etc. And even if they were approved, it wouldn't replace the losses that many of the folks in our community suffer. And and as you may know, the city has come up with a plan to address at least 11 hardest hit communities. And we have several of those communities right here in District 4. So we're waiting for the plan to roll out, which should be soon. And I'll talk about that a little later. We have a crumbling infrastructure, and it needs to get better. And our community is one of the hardest hit whenever we have these, what are now becoming more frequent storms. And whenever they happen, and sometimes when it's not, when you may not think it's a lot of rain, we have folks in our community who in District 4 who do experience flooding. So that heightens the awareness, certainly.
Yes, that all kind of boils down to issues that we have with our pumping stations and our infrastructure, and it is definitely something that needs to be addressed. What is Councilmember Johnson's ideology about addressing those issues?
Well, as you may know, the city has planning to spend about $500 million over the next few years to shore up the infrastructure. The real fix would be separating the stormwater from the wastewater, but we're talking about a $20 billion fix from the numbers that I'm seeing. Needless to say, we don't have $20 billion to separate the system at this point in time. The city has embarked upon a pretty expensive plan, about $500 million. They've started on in our community in Cornerstone and on the west side, northwest side in Rosedale Park, where they're repairing water mains, replacing lead pipes, putting in stormwater infrastructure. Green stormwater infrastructure, all of which we support. We would just ask that more money be put to that to shore up the system, because we don't know when we're going to have another rain event. And the sooner it's done, the better. But
we're almost guaranteed to have another rain event. It was unprecedented last year. I've lived in Detroit for a long time and never seen anything like it was last year. The year before it was pretty tough, but last year it was just, people were hit so hard with it and people suffered so badly because of it. Do you think any of the money from the American Rescue Plan, some of the COVID money, could be used that way? Do you think that the city of Detroit would use some of those funds that way?
Well, for the infrastructure, I'm not absolutely sure of the 500 million. Most of those funds are coming from two sources. One, GLEWA leases the system from us, and we get $50 million a year for that, plus our rates go on to repairing the infrastructure. ARPA funds will be used, though, for the hardening of the basements, the 11 neighborhoods that are going to receive those funds initially. One of the things we would propose is that be expanded, because 11 communities, they took the 11 hardest hit, but there were other communities that suffered along with those 11. So one of the things we're proposing to the administration is that we find other dollars, and they're sensitive to that. So we hope that is spread out. I've heard the mayor speak to certain neighborhoods who weren't in the 11, and he's looking to getting money for that. And also similar conversation with the director, Gary Brown. So we would propose that they really step up their efforts to spend that money, get these problems that we know we have every year, broken water mains. We know we have the lead pipes. Thousands of homes in our city are older and have the lead pipes, and that has implications for a whole nother set of issues.
Yeah.
So they are working on, and then there's some other things, low hanging fruit, like cleaning the basins. We have thousands of basins that are clogged up, so the water isn't flowing as it should. But they're going to line the sewer systems, and just harden the system. That's going to take some time, and $500 million is a significant amount of money, but nowhere near the 20 billion that we would need to permanently fix it. Other things that we would urge people to do is, in addition to that, we think Gleewood needs to improve the pumping stations. We would also urge Gleewood and the communities that are affected by the storm, and it's just not us. Grosse Pointe suffered quite a bit, and in Macomb County. One of the things we think that needs to happen is that this water needs to be retained upstream. Probably the best place would be to have it retained in Macomb County, so their water flow, and then it can be in a retention basin, and then it can be slowly let out into Lake St. Clair. So there's going to have to be some major fixes, and they can't all happen here in the city of Detroit. So we're going to
have to work together on that.
We have to work. It's a regional system, and we're on the receiving end of everybody else's water flow coming this way. So and they're not without problems as well. So if we can figure out a way to retain some of that water a little further north, I think we'll all be better for it.
It'd be really great if all of the costs for the infrastructure didn't fall on Detroiters too. And that's kind of some of the problem with the regional right water system, is that it still all ends up, the rate increases and things like that end up on Detroiters when for the whole infrastructure throughout the whole thing, right? So all of the other 90 other municipalities that we serve, it'd be nice if we all shared the financial cost, and that too would get done a lot quicker.
Well, certainly
it doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, Gleewood's lease requires them to maintain the infrastructure, the pumping stations. The Detroit basically maintains our what you see above the ground, the basins, the sewers, etc. But there's all of the my understanding is that Gleewood is on the hook for a large part of the infrastructure, so we shouldn't bear all the cost of some of these major things, but a lion's share of it will be on us, because we have the combined system that needs to be repaired.
Yeah, I mean, the lion's share is going to be on us. It'd be really lovely if we could figure out that way, so it didn't, because we have a rate increase coming in July that we're super worried about, because people are already struggling to make their ends meet during COVID, and to raise water rates right now it just seems unfathomable. It just seems so wrong, almost criminal. Yeah. So we're hoping that we can stop that as well.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things we have to do, and that's another question you asked, is make water more affordable. Yeah. And right now, you're right, there's going to be a rate increase. But one of the things that I've learned is that the moratorium is certainly helped people. But, there's various programs that if folks could avail themselves of, like the RAP program, which is, may not be the end all in programs, but there are funds available that will help people pay their bills, and then it won't be calculated into the next year's rate. So when the bills aren't paid, the rates are going to reflect it in future years. It hasn't been a problem over the last few years because folks, didn't have to worry about their water being shut off. Now it's kind of a new day. So we have to solve the problem of making water more affordable in our community.
We have to. The People's Water Board created a water affordability plan with Roger Colton in 2005. You and I have discussed it. And we're going to be really, really pushing for that to be implemented as soon as possible. I know it's not a quick fix. It's a system that has to be put in. So it needs to be implemented right away. But I mean, what does it look like at the end of December? All these people who, after the moratorium, what does that look like? In 2014, we had mass water shutoffs. In my neighborhood, I watched they shut off 3 blocks at one time. Everybody. And it took us 2 weeks to get everybody turned back on, which is how I ended up doing this work, really, watching them shut off my whole community. So that's what mass water shutoffs look like. They shut off whole communities at one time. So like having a water affordability plan would be, it just has to be done. And we're going to be pressing city council, the mayor, everyone. We've been pressing them for years and years and years. But at this point in time, with the looming end of the moratorium, if it's not extended and figured out, we have to have a water affordability plan.
Not only that, but we need our city government to push more for commercial and higher government level owned properties to pay their water bills, because as we've seen, there were a number of large corporations and commercial properties that had upwards of 6 and sometimes 7-figure water bills that had not been paid. But you go after the residents if they're $150 past due or 60 days late. We need this same type of fervor for our city officials to go after commercial properties with that same type of gusto as well, because I think that would also help offset some of the costs for things that need to be repaired within the city infrastructure as well.
Well, everybody should pay their share, and we just have to make sure that it's fair. And I'm familiar with the plan that Mr. Colton worked on in Detroit, and I understand that was the basis of the plans in Philadelphia and Baltimore, who currently have affordability programs. One of the problems in Detroit is that, we're a poor city. We, over a third, maybe closer to 40% of our community lives at or below the poverty level. So a family of 3, like my family, we probably use too much water. My bill on the low side is $95 a month. I understand the average is $82 a month or somewhere thereabouts. Well, if you're a family of 3 at the poverty level, you're making about $1,900 a month. $82 a month is 4% of your bill. If it's 82, it's probably a little higher than that. So when people are paying 4% of their income just for water, you still have to eat, you got to pay rent, mortgage, whatever, that's getting pretty high. And I'm sure that's on the low side. So these plans,
think about a family of 6 who's bringing in the exact same amount of money.
Absolutely.
And then of course, at the same time, we went through, winter, people are going through winter and things like that. They're still trying to catch up with their DT bills and all of that through winter.
Yeah. Well, these plans, which you suggest we adopt, and I understand we had adopted it, it just wasn't funded. So I have to learn a little bit more about that and why it didn't happen, didn't get funded.
Please research Victor Mercado.
Yeah, no, it's the
I'm
money's gone. It got stolen, looted.
Okay. Well, for bottom line, it didn't get implemented. And my understanding is that in those other cities, they cap in both cities, they cap it at 3%. And they can even be lower based on your income. They have a tiered system. And they're a little different. One allows you to make a little more income than the other. And so all of those things can be tweaked and adjusted based on the municipality and what they feel will work in that particular municipality. It also has a component where the arrearage are forgiven if as opposed to, because if you don't forgive it or make it easy for folks to catch up and stay in good standing, then they're going to be right back in the same cycle. So those are two very important components, and the conservation. A lot of water gets wasted, and water is getting to be pretty expensive. We waste it on the retail level in our households, and when we have water leaks, when you see basements full of water, like I see traveling throughout the district, because a pipe has burst, that's a wholesale water rate that we're paying to GLEWA. Okay, so we can't allow the waste that's going on in the system. And once it goes through your meter in your home, if you have leaks or you're somewhat nonchalant about how you use your water, that meter keeps ticking. So another important component is water conservation. So
we also know that the rate the neighbors pay too, when they're like, they pay higher bills. My one of the people that got shut off in my block, she had like a $3,000 bill, and she lived by herself. She's elderly. There was no excuse. She couldn't understand why it was so high, but there was 2 houses right next to her that the water was consistently running, and it took DWSD forever to get it to shut off, or even to figure out why her bill was so high. But it was falling on her.
But how would that I'm curious about that, because it would have to go through her meter for her to see it on her bill.
DWSD figured it out. They're the ones who told us that was what happened, what was happening. Not
Really?
that they deleted the debt ever.
Okay, that's I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of those things factor in our rate and our costs. So, Detroit, we can't afford to, 4% is a lot for a family that's only making $23,000 a year, and that's probably on the low side. So the programs that you espouse definitely are worth exploring. I'm going to try to find out a little bit more about why the Detroit program was mothballed, and I'm going to learn more about now. I know the basics of how these programs are working in these cities. I don't know how well they're working. I know they're not without problems. There are issues sometimes, particularly with renters or people who are getting assistance. And that's even with the programs we have in Detroit now. A lot of people don't take advantage of those programs because it ends up on their income tax return, or they end up having to include it as income, and that affects other benefits that they may get.
Yeah.
So that's one
Yeah,
of the
the whole
problems.
system's got kinks in it that'll need to be worked out.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And I know that, especially in Baltimore, they had a lot of stuff. They really worked very, very, very hard, and they had such a will to get it done. But there was a lot of stuff that came up they had to constantly try to figure out how to iron it out and create a system that was equitable for everyone.
Exactly.
But there was we talked to a lady from Food and Water Watch, and she kind of was explaining what the community and the city council and the city government really had to go through to iron those things out. But it was worth it, and it's going to be worth it. And it'll save lives. You know what I mean? Yeah. And imagine if it had gotten implemented when it first got passed. lives would have been
Had a
saved.
massive shut off.
Thousands of lives would have been saved. All of that stress of mass water shutoffs. And with the mass water shut, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We still would have had we would have had probably more people in our city population as well, because I know that I can literally count at least 30 people that moved directly out of the city due to the fact that their water was unaffordable and they were unable and saw no other respite to get rid of that debt, and they weren't able to, pertain water, so they just completely left the city of Detroit altogether.
Yeah.
The other aspect of the mass water shutoffs too, and we talked about this last week, is when water sits stagnant, it ruins the pipes. It ruins the infrastructure. So when you're doing mass water shutoffs and it's sitting stagnant in the pipes and it's not actually running throughout the system, it is literally eating the pipes. Like, and the pipes are leaching in, so it's like all the way around, from the infrastructure to affordability to everything. Mass water shutoffs just don't make sense, especially in a pandemic that's still raging.
Well, we can't live without water. Water is the necessity, and we want our water to be clean, and we want it to be in our sink, not our basement, or not flooding our basement. So we have multiple issues, and it makes it difficult, particularly in a city like Detroit, when so many folks are living, at or close to the poverty level. So we hear you. We on all fronts.
We've been on the phone for the last couple months a few times, and I know that you have been listening and you've been learning a lot, and really taking this in and taking it seriously. I really appreciate that. You have been doing that since we first started talking, and that's really the battle, right? Making sure, or having everybody, because if everybody was educated on it and took the time like you did to actually learn more about it and talk with us, it would be a no-brainer. Yeah, we need a water affordability plan right now. So I really appreciate that, and that willingness to learn.
Well, I appreciate you, and what I like to say, when I learned that the previous council, which was some years ago, felt it was a good idea, maybe we'll feel it's a good idea now. So I encourage you to talk to the other council members. I guarantee you that Member Johnson is going to be educated on this issue. She already, infrastructure, affordability, those are, she and I both grew up on the east side of Detroit in the same neighborhood. I grew up there a few years before she did. We didn't have a lot of money,
Yeah, no, I've talked to a lot of people who've interacted with her, and you can tell that she's on our side with this.
She's
water all the way around.
She grew up in the hood.
Yeah.
And she knows what tough times are, and she has a heart for the people. And when it's something as important as water, we got to try to solve this issue, and we're not going to solve it just Detroit. We can't even solve it. We need the whole region to help solve these issues because of where we find ourselves right now. But this particular issue, we're going to take a real close look, and we're going to be very educated on what they're doing other places and try to find out what happened here.
Great. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to end. We're going to carry on this conversation. You and I will be in contact, Mr. Gray. Like I said, we're going to be talking to everyone on the city council and really pushing for it. So thank you so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it. And please tune in next time, my friends. And until then, take care of each other and try to stay afloat. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, finally, we stopped it. It kept bouncing back when I was hitting.
Are you sure we're done?